Hello, welcome everyone. I've got a very special guest today. This is Joe Macre from Crack the Sky, a bass player, songwriter, and we're going to talk about the new record that they just released called The Baker Files. And how you doing, Joe?
Doing good, Chris.
All right, there
There's
it
the
is right
Baker file.
there.
Oh, that's
Yep.
right. There you go.
Yeah, I have my copy, which is signed. How about that?
Oh, mine's not,
I
man.
was wondering if you had a signed copy.
Nah, nobody signed it for me.
Oh man, that's I wonder that might be a quite a chore to get them guys to do that for you, right?
Well, yeah, I give them grief, as much as I possibly can, so they don't really like me. So they don't, really respond to my requests. Like for
Yeah,
Crack the Sky T-shirts, hats, merch. It's like, who are you? That's what they say to me. So I'm
right.
just playing it low, being the humble servant.
Yeah.
And
Well, at least there's one guy in the band that could sign it.
who?
I think I'm looking at him.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess.
Anyways, first off, I want to tell you, this is a great record. I love it. You guys did an incredible job with it.
Thanks.
And that's why I want to talk to you today. Is have a few questions for you, and I bet you the fans have some questions too. Hopefully, I'll cover the main bulk of them. But of course, if anyone has any questions or comments, please drop them in the link below, and we'll get back to those as well. Uh, okay, so my first impression listening to this. Well, let's do a little background on it,
Okay.
and from just the liner notes and from what I've heard. These were taken from John had did demos back in the late 70s for a solo album he was going to do, and that got shelved, or the demos did, and they were unearthed years later. And then fast forward to now, you were able to take the piano and the vocal that John did, separate them because now we have that new technology with the AI where you can pull tracks out and
Yeah.
you can work on them, separate them, and you were able to set up a multi-track, and then you guys recorded the music to it. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Um, so actually, um, these tapes were heard when John left the band in '78. Um, the record company wanted to hear our songs, so we went in separately and just played a bunch of songs for him, just kind of strummed them out. And John, we both had the same manager because he was Crack the Sky's manager. So he took John to the record plant, and of course they have a wonderful sounding piano and great plate reverb and good microphones and everything. So that's him just playing freeform, not thinking that there would ever be a band put on top of that. This is like just saying to the record company, here's the songs I'm thinking about. And my understanding was that they were upset that he left the band. They were upset that we let him leave the band. It was just like really kind of weird, and they made him go through some hoops and us as well. And so Bobby Baker's son, I believe, found the multi tracks, so they had to be baked. So they baked the Baker files. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then they transferred them to digital, right? So we just got like wave files of everything. And then the task at that point was, so I'm trying to make this easy to understand. It is for me, but sometimes when I tell the story, I make it more complicated. When John's playing, he's just playing. Now, if he's playing thinking these guys are going to play on top of me, he's going to be thinking more tempo, more, I got to stay in a groove because they're going to match my groove and stuff like that. Well, he was just playing freeform, so his tempo was up and down, which is good because if you play to a click track, it's the same tempo. And like when you're getting to a chorus, you kind of hold back. The tempo may slow down sometimes and then kick in and speed up during the chorus. that's just a natural human response to what you're doing, because everything you're doing is trying to set that chorus up, right, with the verse and the music that's involved in that, and then you make the change and it kind of opens up. So it was decided upon that I would take John's piano track, and I had split that and given that to Rick. So the vocal now was a stereo track, and somehow AI kept the reverb, the beautiful plate reverb from the Hit Factory on his voice. No step down at the fade out. It was just beautiful, and the piano was too. And so,
Yeah. So you
what
guys
I had to,
Joe, you had to play along to that with no click track. So this is going with the. Now, did you change the tempo or manually, anything like that, or was it pretty much you just kind of grooved to John's original?
I put it in my Workstation Pro Tools at 120 beats per minute, but that doesn't matter, right? Unless I want to have a click going with it and set
Right.
up a tempo. But that was impossible because he didn't play to a click. So the tempo map would have been like crazy, and it really wouldn't have helped me. So I figured out what part I wanted to play through the whole song, and then I started recording. And I was like, he did that 2 measures faster than me. Back up, punch those 2 measures, and speed up just a little bit. And then I could look at the wave files, and I didn't want to get too far into sliding anything because then I'm going to lose the human feel, right? And that's what we wanted to keep. So a couple notes I adjusted, and this and that, got the performance I want, and put that down. Now what you had was John and me playing with the same feel, which is exactly what we wanted, okay, before Joey came down. So then Joey came down, and Bobby, and actually John did too, and he brought Mary. So Sticks, Joey D'Amico, went in and played it like first take. He just like, fell right into the groove. We may have done 2 takes, but he just was so solid, and that was that. And from there, it was just Ricky and Bobby, and they sang backgrounds also, so they did their parts, and I didn't hang around for all of that. They would send me stuff just to listen to, and I really loved working on this because what you're talking about is John playing and singing his songs for his first album in 1978. They get unearthed, and I happen to be back in the band now, and it's us playing in 2024. So, the way I see Crack the Sky is just like any other band that makes records. I don't mean to suggest that we are as good as anyone or anything, but when you look at time, him playing in 78 and us playing in 2024, it's like this, we're actually crossing time. We couldn't be there in 2024 with what we know and do now, or we need a time machine, which I know you don't have one because I didn't ask you if I can borrow it.
That's
right? So what we had to do was just build it up. But let's say Queen did that, and I'm not comparing us to Queen. We love Queen, and there's a lot on Safety in Numbers that you could tell by the production of it that we love Queen. But if they found tapes of Freddie Mercury now, and albeit John is still alive and Freddie's dead, and they were gigantic and we weren't, but if they found him from 1978 doing something, and they decided now to record that against what Freddie did, like that would be like major news.
Well, the Beatles have done that, and I think it was back in the mid '90s, wasn't it? That when they first had that technology, maybe it was early 2000s, the Free as a Bird sessions, which was just upset the apple cart. People were just amazed, and of course, then recently, they've been able to take the splits from a lot of things like Ringo's drums, for example, were done in mono, or they were a lot, just played recorded on one track, and they were able to extract all that and remix them. So that's pretty amazing. And I know they did. What was it? The one song it was last year, or the year before was they had John's one of his unfinished songs, and Paul and Ringo, and they came back and recorded it with them, and it was pretty amazing what they can do now.
Yeah, that's the point of it. You know, I can't. I mean, you know, I studied audio engineering, and everything to me is frequency. Um, you know, 200 hertz, 100 hertz, 3,000, whatever. And they have to share. They're sharing the same frequencies. That vocal and piano are sharing a lot of the same frequencies, and for it to separate it that well, I I don't get it, but
Well,
I'll use it. Yeah, I don't need to get it. I just know that these days there are so many tools, and Ricky and I talked about it like 2 days ago. Man, can you imagine when we were 18, 19? Because we were together. Like when we were young, we were living in a place in Weirton above a machine shop, and we would just play all day. I mean, that was like our thing. And if we had had this technology back then, it's like we probably would have ended up in a completely different place, you know, because I wouldn't have wanted to change the way we learned or did anything, because it was hard, and you were part of that, right? It's like you didn't have YouTube, you didn't have people like, hey, yeah, here's how you play this and how you play that. It was like I learned close to the edge when I was like 20 and front to back, and you know, it was a turntable,
yeah.
and it was like drop the note, hum the note, play the note, and on a ba da 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 da. That's a lot of notes, you know. It's da da that boom 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 boom, and you're singing them to yourself and playing them, and you know. And then when I actually got to spend a day with Chris Squire when Oliver Wakeman was playing on the records, and I told him that. I was like, you know, I learned this when I was like just out of high school, front to back. I could play every note, and I think I got it pretty close. I said, but I didn't have any idea why I was playing what I was playing, because as a musician I wasn't developed. Like I didn't have the math in my head like he did, so I didn't really know. And I said to him, now I understand. And he was just like, he got it. He knew what I was saying, you know. But that was one of the highlights of my life. I actually got to be on stage with his roadies, and they showed me everything. And, you know, it was like, they were just so nice to me because I was working with Oliver, you know. And Steve Howe came out. And Oliver told me before we even got to the sound check, don't put your hand out to shake Steve's hand because he's germaphobe and he just doesn't do that. Don't do that. And so I'm standing at Chris's mic, and his guitar's there and his pedals, and they're explaining everything to me. And here comes Steve out of this back door, and I turn around and look, and he's got a guy on each side of him. I guess they were with the crew. And he walks right up to Chris's mic where I'm standing and goes, "Hi, I'm Steve." And puts his out his hand and shake it like, "Hi, Steve, I'm Joe." And it was just the strangest thing because everybody looked like, wow, he shook his hand. You know, so anyway, it was just a bunch of strange stuff. And, you know, I ended up, you know, I wanted to see Oliver play because his dad, Rick Wakeman, he plays solos, like sometimes two solos at the same time that are different, left hand, right hand. You know, and he's done that on these Yes records and stuff like that. And I've watched Oliver doing it, and that's what I wanted to see Oliver do. Because I told him, I was like, man, you play just like your dad. And he's like, I said, he must have taught you. He's like, no, actually, he wasn't around much. And I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but he was on the road. I mean, I could have guessed that. You know, Yes was gigantic. So, but he did have, I think, he said the same teacher. So, but
Well, he certainly had the genetics.
he did. And at the show, though, all I could see was Chris Squire. I mean, it was like, you know, he had blood clots in his legs. The show before this one in Dallas which is where we were living, and his health was not good. When they started playing, he was intense. He was just intense, and that's kind of how I am. People say like, "Boy, you make a lot of faces and stuff." I'm like, "Sorry, like I don't know. I don't see that." It's like I'm way into it, you know. And with crack music, sometimes you better be way into it because, yeah, play this 4 times, then go to this one for 7 times, then go back to the 4-time one, but double that one. So instead of it's like it's a double of that part, and do that whatever 5-6 times so you're on stage counting and counting and counting and counting, and it can be difficult. And at this point, I just lay back and I listen to Joey because I can just feel when he's going to do something different. It's like, and so I'm not counting anymore, and it's so much more fun to play. But anyway, the intensity is just something that I've always felt, but I was always conscious of, of the way I looked and stuff. So,
Well, something you mentioned before about the time capsule, and it's interesting because I actually put that in my notes, and that was the theme that just kept striking me as I'm listening to this album, is that you're transported to another time, yet we're in 2024 at the same time. First of all, you did an amazing job with that, and also Ricky, and you guys did that at his studio, right? For the most of it.
Well, yeah, I did my bass parts here, and
Yeah.
then brought them over with me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the record sounds great. I was trying to also pinpoint, and you were talking about Chris Squire and your heroes and all that, and yes, being a big influence. The thing about, well, first of all, that chemistry that you guys have, I think, you weren't in the band for a while, but when you came back, it's like it immediately clicked. Like we're talking about with Joey, was going back, years ago, and you guys just were able to meld just that seamlessly, of even though years had passed, and that's just an amazing tribute to, or testament to what you guys are all about and what what you've done through the years. And the one thing I want to add to that was your bass playing from an outside perspective. And I've talked about this, and I always try to think about what makes you so special. And it's that you're able to hold the groove, yet you have your own voice going on throughout the music. It's just beautiful, man. It's like there's very few bassists that have that talent. I mean, Geddy Lee comes to mind. Obviously, Chris Squire, because you cut your teeth on his records and his playing, and that shows for sure. But it's a real talent, and I know you're very humble, and all the guys in the band are. But that makes it even more special because we're just blown away as fans, and we can see some things that maybe you don't see. And it's interesting that you don't really know where it kind of comes from. You just kind of do it right at the end of the day. It's all the feeling, emotion, the grit, the energy. It all just comes out.
Yeah, it's part of the whole process, So, like when we moved to New York, we moved into Pace University because it was summertime and they were off, and we were going to record up in White Plains. And I had been a fat kid my whole life, and so I was still pretty fat. What happens is, so you make a record, and you kind of think this is a pretty good record, You really never know, and this, where your career is going to go. You know that you like something, and yeah, we got some pretty good chemistry. But then you get out on the road, and you start opening for like everybody. And we opened for everybody and played just about every state in the country, even Hawaii. And with that competition, and you start seeing real popular performers play, that gives you the map of what you need to be doing, and just what a concert actually is, because the only concerts that we knew, I mean, Rick, John, and myself worked security at the Stanley Theater in Pittsburgh, right? And so we hadn't made any records or anything like that, but we were an original band. And one of the first bands that we worked security for was Straub's, and they had a Mellotron, and we heard this Mellotron, and we're like, there's the ticket to Prague right there. We got to get a Mellotron. Boom, we bought a Mellotron. We were all poor. We had no money, but most of it came from just being out there and seeing, and like, we're either going to get crushed or we're going to crush this opening act. And then, believe me, it's a competition, right? Oh, yeah, we had a great... Now, with Atlanta Rhythm Section, it wasn't a competition because I walked on stage when Atlanta Rhythm Section was getting done. I walked up, and the bass amp was there, and, Paul Goddard's bass amp was there, and he turned around and went, "Joe!" And I was like, "Hi." And he said, "Joe Macre, oh man, you're one of my favorite bass players in the world. This is Atlanta Rhythm Section. They had the #1 song in the country, right?" And I'm like, "Wow, thanks." But to me, that just became a friendship. Like, wow, thanks that you know who I am at least, and you want to be my friend. Like, that was good enough for me, man. I didn't need a bunch of people saying, "Oh, you're really hot," and this and that and the other thing. But when you look at it, it's like, I wanted to be unique, and I knew that Joey and I had the same history because we listened to the same stuff growing up, and it would be lunch every day, listening to James Brown live at the Apollo, and then, when Zeppelin came out, we'd go to Zeppelin and started getting heavy stuff, and, just really, I mean, we spent a lot of time together, so... I wanted to be as melodic as McCartney and as unique as Squire in a different way, So I never really copied Chris's sound that much, but I did have a Rickenbacker and stuff. But like, I also loved Dee Murray, so when it came to piano songs, man, it was like Elton John, because Dee Murray like played with such taste as McCartney did. And I found so many licks that Chris Squire played that McCartney played. And it was like, I can see John Paul Jones in there too. All these people were kind of affected by each other, and that's what made it bigger than it actually was. It wasn't just like Lemmy. Lemmy has a technique that nobody else has. Right?
Yeah,
it's just the way he played.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you just mentioned too McCartney and
John Paul Jones.
Yeah, John Paul Jones. Those are another two that have their own voice. They can lay it down, but they also, you can hear they have something going on in the song, and it's interesting to the listener.
Yeah.
We can tell that you took your cues from those guys because it really shows, but then you did it in your own way. And I think ultimately that's what it is, man. It's like your band, you have a unique sound. I mean, I can think of influences. I can hear things here and there. Pretty much everything you mentioned, it comes out. But at the end of the day, you sound like yourself, which to me is always, I've been striving all my life for that. It's like the biggest compliment anyone can give you.
Yeah, it's weird, being a bass player is the kind of thing. If you have a super gigantic need for attention, which most musicians do, it's like, I find that if I feel like that I have a certain style, that's enough for me. That to me is like the hardest thing. And it goes back to when we had our apartment in Weirton, and we'd play songs like "Too Hard to Handle" and just like popular songs from back in the day, Johnny Winter and Edgar Winter and stuff like that. but I always felt like that I was like not good at copying, and I was like, I had this really good friend. I would tell him just how bad I stunk all the time, and
Do you
he's
think
like,
that that is, and it's interesting you said that because it just struck another question in my mind that today's musicians, they're privy to so much information. I mean, you can learn things note for note exactly the way the player learned it and so forth, or played it and so forth. But if you go back to our time and going back, like dropping the record needle and you're rewinding the cassette, and I've heard that from other musicians before. It's like I couldn't learn it exactly, so I interpret it in my own way. Do you think that's maybe why we had more individuality back then and more
I do, and I
generational talent in that?
yeah, and I think that what we strove to do to get better was become better musicians, right? Not just like more flashy bass player, a more flashy guitar player. It's like understanding what I'm doing. So, I was teaching at the School of Rock in Pittsburgh here, and it was an hour drive from me. And then when COVID hit, they went online. I had all my students online, so this is how I would teach. And they said, "Okay, we're coming back to the school." And I said, "Yeah, I don't know if I can do that." Because it was, you could a 2 hour drive, hour up, hour back. It's like, and you have like 2 lessons, you might not even get gas money, So I just told all my students, hey, look, I can't teach you, unless the school were to give me a blessing to say, yeah, go ahead and do it. I said, I can't. So, whatever. They all called the school and said, we're not going to take lessons. So then they called me and said, we're not taking lessons at the school. Can we take lessons from you? And I was like, yeah, sure. So it turned out great. But the interesting part about that, Chris, is that the 19 to 27-year-old bass players that I was teaching, they wanted to learn Getty, and okay, I'll teach you Tom Sawyer and YYZ and stuff like that. But it's like they wanted to learn the notes. And there's a difference between being a copycat and a musician. Okay? Yes, a musician can copy someone, but a musician can also understand why that person's playing that. Like how do those notes make sense within the structure of that song, right? And then what extensions beyond that are there? And there's tons, because once you get into blues and jazz and like just different stuff, there's like you're really expanding yourself. So when I get a student now that wants to take bass and they're younger, first thing I tell them is, look, if you're looking to learn Getty, that's great, I'll teach you a couple songs. But if I have to teach so that I'm hopeful when I'm not around that you're going to still be on the musician's ladder climbing, striving for that instead of striving for what note did he play there. I don't care why he played it, but I want to play that note because I got a gig tonight and I got to play that. So that's what I want from my students. That's what I want my legacy to be, because that's me, and I had no one to help me. My dad it was like sports. So I played football, I played baseball, and it's just it didn't do it for me. I mean, I love football and I love baseball and sports, but it's like to make a career, it's like no, I didn't want to do that, and I didn't want to work in a steel mill my whole life, So it was, yeah. And when I met Rick, it was the same thing. It's like we got to get out of here, not because we hate our hometown or our families or anything. It's because we got to get out of here and pursue this thing, And when you have someone like that, and I encourage my students to get like-minded people. You might have to go through fights and all kind of personality crap and stuff, but man, when you start feeding off each other and you see that your partner's getting good, you want to stay up, compete with that, and so that's kind of where I'm at as far as teaching, and I guess when it gets down to this record, that's where I sit in this whole thing, and I've produced and engineered and stuff like that, and when they asked me to come back in the band, it's like, yeah. And I decided that I just wanted to be the best side man that I could be. Because, these guys have been doing this for a long time. Yeah, I have some wisdom that I could add. But it's like, you just want to come in and fill the space that you need to fill, you know. And Dave, who was there before me, did a great job of that. And I'm just trying to just be the best side man that I can be. I'll always be a part of Crack the Sky. I mean, no matter what I was doing, I was still always would see myself in that light, as part of the chemistry of that band. But now, we're we're getting up in age, and it's like, so you could fight like 16-year-olds and jockey for position and do all that stuff, but it's like, this is it, man. Let's just have a good time and do it, and we're doing that. John's been great, and that's the other thing. I know you're not asking these questions, but I just have to say what's on my mind. A lot of bands create songs for their bag, for their style, and sometimes they go as far as being platforms for their solos, right? Or they're instrumentalists, right? And that's what the songs become. What's unique about Crack the Sky is John writes these songs, and like, a lot of people don't really zero in to try and find out what they're about. Before I try to come up with any bass line, I'll listen to those lyrics as much as I can, because if I get that inside of me, what he's trying to say, or there's a lot of different ways to say things, especially for someone like John, right? And so I'm like, what's he talking about? What's he really talking about? And I'll call him and ask him or something, or I'll just figure it out. And then once I get that in me, then it's like, it makes it easier,
Yeah, you told me you had done that with Sea Epic. That was the one, you told me that story.
Yeah.
Where his lyrics inspired your bass line for that.
Yeah, and I saw it as, God save the captain. He's got I saw major chords, and I saw like the British. It's patriotic, but I saw it as like dum 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 dum, like McCartney would do classical, and I heard it like that. He's got a mind to lead, and the country needs him. Don't let them alone. Do 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 do. And I tried to make it more orchestral, and that's from listening to the lyrics and stuff. And once I figured out what it was about, I laughed. I don't know if you know, but anyway, it's pretty funny. And so I try to digest what I can from John, and John has he understands where my heart is with his songs, because when he came down, we were looking for a Lou Gramm, right? Because Foreigner had just hit Hot Blooded Chicken, and we're like, oh, we got to get a singer like that, We figured we would write songs, and that would just be something we did down the road. JP shows up and starts playing Ice, and in our rehearsal place. And it hit me like, this is way beyond what we were looking for here. This has some substance, and everybody felt it. And we worked up Ice, the basics to Ice right there. And then it was like, can he be our lead singer? Well, it's not the kind of voice we were looking for, but he can interpret his songs. So we got this package of this great songwriter. He's written 29 Crack albums and a bunch of hits. So he doesn't seem to have much time for anything else. He's just a writer, and he's true to it,
He is.
And I love it. He sent me like 15 songs, and he sent everybody these songs, and was like, we'll probably whittle it down to like 10 for this new record that we're doing. And but he's like, yeah, just see what you guys think. So we'll talk about it. Like, oh man, I love this. I love this. I love this. So that's where we're at now. We're working. In fact, Bobby and Joey are driving from Baltimore now.
I'm actually gonna ask you about that right at the end, but Would it be okay to talk about the tracks on the Baker Files? I just wanted to
Yeah.
go
Oh
through
yeah.
each one and just briefly get a reaction from you or any comments about the tracks, and I'll tell you what my impressions were too. Starting with Madness on Comet Way, that's track one. So this starts with John's piano, right?
Yep.
And the vocal. You guys come in with this crazy proggy type of thing. I'm thinking that you and Joey kind of created that, a lot of that, right? It's very, what it struck me is Emerson, Lake and Palmer. That's what that sound like to me. I was like thinking I'm listening back to, Welcome to the Show That Never Ends and all that, just like something from that era was just amazing. And it just comes and just blows your mind, like right after the piano. So you have this real like contrast, you have the piano and the vocal, and then you have this amazing passage that brings you into the song. And then the chorus actually reminded me of a Jim Croce song, Don't Mess Around with Jim, just the lyrics of it. The don't, you know, just the way that was structured. I don't know if that was probably subliminal or something,
Yeah.
because you guys were on the same record label or around that era or whatnot. But anyway, what is your impression of that song, or what was the
Well,
inspiration behind that one?
well, do you mind if I just play a piece of it so that people can hear it?
Yeah, you can certainly. Yeah, you can do that for
I
sure.
know you can insert it
I was gonna do
afterwards.
that too, but yeah, either way,
Well,
yeah,
let me just play
you got it
this.
queued up for sure. Yeah,
I think I do.
okay.
Is that loud enough?
Or just a little bit more. That's good, I think.
Okay, so then it gets into the verse.
It's mind blowing, man.
Yeah, I know it's kind of
Oh
distorted and
wow.
stuff over the.
There's a little bit. Well, you cut the volume a little, and it was helpful after it got kicked in. But
Yeah.
man, where'd you guys come up with that?
Well, John did. So basically, then I I entered on the so I came in there, but when you listen to it, you don't feel any speeding up or slowing down because I matched John's human feel. Sticks
Yeah.
matched us. Everybody else jumped on that feel, and so it just feels like the band was sitting there playing.
And
Which,
that's way better because that's the groove, man. If you're playing to a click and you're snapping everything to the grid and making it perfect, it loses its soul.
yep, yeah. So that's the first song on there, and that was kind of the blockbuster, the more difficult one for everybody.
Yeah, I think it sets up the record pretty nicely. I made a mistake. I said John's vocal would come in the beginning. I didn't mean that. It's after you guys set it up.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's cool. The piano, then it's that, crazy madness what you guys did there in that intro. Like I said, it's very Emerson, Lake and Palmerish, and then you go to that beautiful groove for the verse, and then John's vocal comes in, and then amazing song. So love it, man.
yeah.
Let me check a track two, right? Family Man.
Hmm.
John's lyrics are very poignant and interesting as usual.
Yeah.
I get the irony and all that stuff, but any comments about that song from your perspective?
Well, it's just at first listen, when he goes, boom, da, boom, da, boom, da, boom, da, boom, da. It's like that's all you got to tell me in Sticks. It's like you can either hit the boom or the da, or whatever combination you want. So we did. So those kind of things are pretty easy to figure out when he gives you a little, it cracks the door open a little bit on, what he's doing. Then you're like, oh, okay. So with that one, basically, where is it here? Oh, I got some stuff I'm not allowed to play. Let's see.
I can go on to track three if you want. And come
No,
back.
here's two. Okay, so I'll just give it just a little beginning of it.
Okay.
Now they find your little girl playing doctor down the hotel Calypso. Now they drag her down to jail 'cause she wasn't playing doctor for free. Now they call you to the station, now you gotta post bail. Now you put your arms around her and hold your little girl 'cause you're a family man, you're a family man. You gotta turn the other cheek and put your head in the sand. You're a family man, you're a family man. You take good care of the family.
So first time I heard that, it was like Chuck Rainey,
Yeah, and
Steely
that's
Dan.
a good example of what I was saying before. You're laying it down, the groove perfectly, but you're putting little fills and little things to throw your voice in there as well.
Yeah, a funny story about Chuck Rainey. Was it Peg or
Well,
one of the Steely Dan songs? They said, "Don't thumb, don't pop, don't slap at all."
hmm
And he went, "Oh, okay." And he moved his chair. You heard that story, right? He
No,
moved his chair so they couldn't see his
yeah,
right hand, and he
yeah.
popped. Boom, ba-da, doo, pop, pop. It's just
I
those
think it
shadow
was,
notes.
yeah, Leland Sklar. I think he had something about that, and I've heard that trick being used by like studio guitar players. Oh, you want a different sound, and then they turn it'll look like they're turning knobs, but they're not doing
Well,
it.
Sklar's he put a pod on there that doesn't do anything.
That's what it was. Yeah,
And he goes,
right,
"Well, how's this
right,
sound?" That's it. Yeah, there it is.
exactly. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool, man. That's a killer track as well. On the balcony tonight. Um, this was interesting. It struck me as there was a Beatles song. It really reminded me of, and I wasn't sure which one. So I called my friend Ross and I said, because he's a Beatles expert, he knows everything. I said, "What? Can you listen to this Crack Sky song and tell me what Beatles song it reminds of?" This is what he told me. And he called me back right away. So I said the beginning sounded a little bit like Honey Pie. I hear a little bit of that,
Mm-hmm.
but not totally. Then the main part is for the benefit of Mr. Kite or Maxwell's Silver Hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it does have a little influence. Those tracks are kind of remind me of that.
Well,
On the
one of the
balcony.
big things that I loved about McCartney and the Beatles was they would play what the song needed, right? So,
Mhm.
dum, 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 dum. Oh, and I ain't playing that, man. no, I ain't doing that country stuff, man. I ain't. No, I. McCartney did made a living doing that, and it's like, that's like part of Crack the Sky sound. Like that was a sea epic,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah, you got that
the
from McCartney. And
robots
then
for
you got all the
rhyme.
crazy stuff from Chris Squire,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but it's like, yeah, you know, that's just part of what I love and I played this bass part as kind of a walking thing and was just all over the neck, but only with the oompa feel to it.
On the balcony tonight, there's a man throwing airplanes and laughing as they tumble to the ground. Well, it's not a pretty sight, cause he's leaning way over and I think he's contemplating coming down. If I phone for the police, they're gonna wonder what I'm doing. Looking out my window at 2 in the morning, I think I'll just relax and watch this maniac on the balcony tonight. On the balcony tonight, that old man's got his clothes off and he's dancing around like a child. Well, it's raining and it's snowing. I don't think that he knows it, but I do think that the fool's gone wild. If I call the VFD, they're gonna probably think we're buddies. Then the word will get around that I'm as nuts as he is. So I think I'll just relax and watch this maniac on the balcony tonight. Why can't somebody else see this? Why must I see this alone? Where the hell are all the neighbors tonight? Why must I see this? Why must I see this alone? On the back.
So yeah, it's total Beatles.
Yeah. Who
I
who
love
did the
that.
backups on that?
Bobby and Rick.
Yeah, I thought you mentioned that before. Maybe that was in the liner notes, but so that wasn't part of the original. That was added
Yeah,
more
yeah.
recently.
That's with all of us on there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how you take things and you make it into, well, like you mentioned before. I mean, those in recent years, the band, it's been a lot of four to the floor type of thing and that kind of thing. Those songs are great too, but
Mm-hmm.
this harkens back to the early days when you guys were putting this just this thing together that was nothing like anything else. And that's a good example where you have the A section and the B sections just and then C and D, and you're always changing up stuff, whether it's the tempo or the dynamics. You guys use the dynamics a lot, which is
Yeah.
kind of rock bands sometimes don't pay much attention to, but you guys you nail that.
Yeah.
That's so
We're just a
important to
product
music,
of our influences, Chris. It's like Jethro Tull was big influence on all of us, and John, played acoustic guitar and wrote a lot of stuff like that. There's a song on the new record that I'm like, man, there's a lot of Tull in there. And Bill said, I could play
You're
flute.
gonna bring out the flute, yeah.
So
It's awesome.
yeah, but we have a lot of influences, and that's how you become who you are. Now people could say, you're Beatles ripoff. Yeah. You're a Yes ripoff. Yeah. You're this and you're that. We're just a combination of what we've grown up with, right?
Yeah, it's like put them all into a blender, and that's you guys.
That's it,
Yeah.
So doing those kind of songs, may not be like super impressive to like, speed guys and, certain musicians, but it's like, I don't care. Like I dig it, it's like,
Right.
and then,
Yeah.
Yeah, and then all those lights and sitting on
Yeah.
top of the world. Sitting on top of the world is just a beautiful song.
You know what? That's exactly what I wrote in my notes. Beautiful melody. Love it, man. Let me
It's
let me backtrack real quick though. All those lights, it sounded like Leonard Skinner, honky tonk nighttime man. I mean, that's what it reminds me of. I mean, it's cool. It's not Skinner, but it popped out as that song kind of had the same kind of sound to it, which is really cool
Cool.
because that's like one of my favorite Skinner tunes.
Well, let me
But
just.
Bobby's playing slide, right?
Yeah, it's probably.
Maybe it might not even be honky tonk. It's something off Street Survivors.
Little white girl
Just
on the
leave.
bus pulling into the city. Little white girl all alone, looking hungry and pretty. Big man come around looking for a downtown lady who'll go for a ride. Maybe. Cadillac rolls down the boulevard and parks near the Bijou.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Doctor Hook too, and like Leon Russell. It's kind of got some of that. It's like I like playing. When they had us in a house up in Irvington, New York, while they were going through a lawsuit to win us because we had recorded with some other people and there was a lawsuit, and there was a piano in the house, and man, JP sat there and wrote tons of songs there, and I would always sit at his left hand, so all this kind of stuff is just like 9 months of sitting at his left hand. We didn't work up this song, but we worked up a whole lot of other songs.
Yeah.
From the piano, the whole Rangers of Midnight and all that stuff
Yeah.
that he was writing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so finally, sitting on top of the world, and that's like one of my favorite songs I've heard all year. So, or for a long time, it's a great song, man. It's beautiful, epic, all those superlatives that I could throw out there. But what would you like? What do you know like to say about that track?
Well, I can only speak, for like the bass part, so it's kind of self-serving, and I apologize for that. But it's like, from my perspective, what I wanted to do on this song was to create the best rub of the bass note against his left-hand bass note on the piano, so that the emotion of the song would come out, because the song is about, someday we'll be sitting on top of the world, like right now we're not, so it's kind of sad, you got to kind of get the right notes. So my descending lines, the second note of each descending chord, boom, boom, I looked for the rub, the emotional rub on those notes, right? And so to me, what happens is when people hear it, they don't hear the bass rubbing and thinking that, but there's emotion to it,
Yeah,
and
subliminal.
that gets in you, So I'm just trying to bring emotion from my part into the song. That's all I need to do, If
Yeah.
bass players go like, oh shoot, he ain't doing nothing, what I'm saying? That's cool if that's the way you see it, But to me, that it's important that I do it the way I do it,
Right. Did you want to play a little sample of that one too?
Yeah,
Speed up.
I love this song.
Yeah, it's great.
See, I got the motif right from John. And my part was the first to go down.
I'm home. Yeah, I know it's late, but I've been losing. No, don't. I get in myself.
Yeah.
I had them jokers crawling
minor.
like I promised you.
And the major. Here.
Someday
This
we'll be
note,
sitting on top of the
that note.
world again. We'll be laughing at all those fools down there. Sitting on top of the
Going up.
world again. We'll be laughing someday, I swear.
Back to the intro. All right, so it goes down when his emotions going down, and it goes up when he's going up. Someday.
I know it's no fun living at the Sands Hotel. I told you you should get out in the sun, maybe go for a drink in the famed Copa room, or shopping for a gift to bring home. 'Cause tonight I'm feeling lucky. Maybe tomorrow we'll go. Someday we'll be sitting on top of the world again. We'll be laughing at all those fools down there. Sitting on top of the world again. We'll be laughing someday, I swear.
Bum, 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 bum.
I'm home. Man, I got awful close tonight.
Anyway.
Yeah, so that was one comment is that subtle little touch where Joe brings up, he kind of double times the beat there just to break things up is so cool.
Yeah, see, what I said, I started playing that, and I thought further down the road the drums would come in. But then when I played it, Rick and I think Bobby said, "Oh no, just go, just do the bass and drums together right there." So I like that, but it kind of needed that at the end.
Yeah, it just lifts it up. Right. And then Bobby
Yeah.
and Rick's take over with the solos, right? It sounded like it was a trade-off there.
Yeah, and they work so well together, and they're
Sounds
so
great.
good.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. What bass did you play on this session? Did you was that
You
the
know-
Rickenbacker, or did you use the different ones?
No, I used the 57 on a couple of them, but that 63 Precision that I got from Steve Mack that I had sold him years ago, and then years ago asked him if I could buy it back, and
Yeah.
he said no. And then his first gig back with Crack the Sky at Club 66 was hanging on the wall, and it had my autograph on it, and I was like, and I saw him sitting there. I said, "What's that doing there?" And I went out in the audience before the show, and he said, "That's yours." And I said, well, "I asked you if I could buy it back," and you said no, like years ago. And he went, "I'm not. I'm just singing now."
Wow.
So he actually gave it back to me, and it's like, it sounds wonderful. It's
Yeah.
kind of like an Elton John, like a D Murray bass. It rosewood neck, so it's soft, it's mellow, and it just works with piano real good. So that's pretty much what I use.
Yeah, that stood out to me too. Your bass sounds fantastic on this record.
Thanks.
Little Birdie told me you guys are working maybe on a new record, a new full length. What's
Yeah.
the story on that, man?
Well, I'll play you a little piece of it. I know that they're going to be mad that I did this, but yeah, this is. Let's see. Yeah, this is probably going to make it to the record. You want to hear a little snippet?
Absolutely.
Okay. There it is.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all I'm allowed to play.
That's
One and
it?
a half notes.
Well, that was a teaser. Man. Well,
Yeah.
I tell you what, man, we can't wait. This is awesome. It's so good to hear you guys back in the groove. And
Thanks.
like I said,
50 years, bro.
just the
50 years.
50, yeah, 50. Is this is it 50 now? Wait,
50.
70, right,
75 to 25. Yeah.
right,
So
because your debut record was early 76 was when it was released, right? Was
no,
did I
it
get that
was
right?
out in 75.
Was it
Um,
75?
and I remember it coming out like I thought September, October,
Mm,
because I remember thinking, man, it's the Christmas rush, and
mm,
I wish we were coming out in May, because it seemed like rock records that came out early in the year did well by summertime.
mm.
So that's the only reason I remember. I could look it up, but yeah,
I
this
thought,
whole year is
yeah,
going to be 50th anniversary every gig, and we'll be throwing in some old tunes.
yeah. Do you guys have any plans to do any of the Baker Files live?
Yeah, I mean, I think we will. You
And
know,
I'm sure the new one as well, right? And that
yeah, we
comes
just
out.
got done,
Yeah.
doing the whole Christmas thing and that whole Christmas medley. We had to work that up pretty much over the phone and then rehearse it at sound check, and then do that at every show up until then. So, yeah, I think, but see, there's a lot of records they put out that I hadn't really heard a bunch of specific songs. So, like when they say, hey, we got to do so and so for the next gig, like, I'm like, okay. I don't know how it goes. Like you could learn the notes, they could give you the notes and everything, that you need to play, but if you don't know how the song goes in your head, if it's not something you can just kind of listen to without
Yeah.
playing the song, right? And so for me, I have to listen to some of those songs like a lot before I can actually start singing them. They'll just pop
Hmm.
in my, oh, okay. And once you can do that, you can play them. But for me, it was kind of like, I don't know this song very well. What comes next? And I had some index cards and I put them on the floor for the harder songs, and I could glance
Yeah.
down. But then I got to be like, that's like a crutch. And if you don't stay in the moment, you start looking at that set list and those notes, and you get ahead and stuff like that. It's like crazy. You just got to stay in the moment, stay in the song. So you better learn how the song goes.
Yeah.
You know. And
Absolutely.
I know these now, so it'll
Right.
be easier to work up. And the new
Yeah.
album, like I don't know when it'll be out because we just started on it. And he writes so many songs. In June, he may come up with a song that's like, well, let's put that on the record.
Right.
So
Well, I
we're
guess at
just
the end of the
keeping it
day,
up.
it's a nice problem to have, right?
Yeah, and plus, like we're getting used to, a new team of people working on stuff, right? So, like Bill playing with like Transatlantic and the bands he's played with, Neil Morris and Spock's Beard and all that. Those guys will write like they can write fast arrangements, right? And 15 minutes to put this arrangement together and send it to you, and you'd be like, oh, yeah, no, we don't want to do all that. It's like, oh, it's just kind of a picture of what I'm thinking maybe we can do. Right. And
Yeah.
it's like, so you can kind of getting used to everybody. Me, in the old days, it was like me and Joey just did our thing, and that was it. We did our thing, and nobody really would listen and say, you know what, maybe you shouldn't do that there. Maybe you should try this or try that. And we just did what we did, and that's the way it was. And now, being older and stuff, it's like I'm not opposed to being produced. The thing is, like band members, like it, you can let things bug you, right? Other personalities in the band, and they always do. There's always personality conflicts in every band you've been in, but then it comes down to the individual player. Like there's Mac in the background.
I know. I see him.
Yeah.
Oh.
And but it's like, well, I'm not going to let that bother me. It's like people have opinions, and produce me. Here I am. I'm sitting here. Go ahead. Let's go. I have an idea how I want the song to go. And that. You know what that is. So let's go. So, I've just been sitting there, and they've been giving me input, and I've been playing, and, it's like, what? come on, man, no, I want to do it this way.
Yeah.
You know, it's so stupid. You know,
Yeah.
like,
Well, we've
you know,
had 50 years to learn to grow up, right?
yeah, you
Everybody
know,
mature and learn what's right way and wrong way, and
yeah, and I
how to
hope,
handle people and so forth.
and I hope we're all around for a long time, and we
Yeah.
get to do
Well.
this for a long time. You know, the fact is we are getting older, you know, but we're also getting better. You know, and I recognize that. You know, it's like having Bobby Hurd and Bill in the band is just has opened up more doors for us. You know, we had our own personality in 1975 to 78 and that. And, you know, now we're just older and smarter and better and more willing to work with each other, you know. So, yeah, I'm just on for the ride, and it's a good ride, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Well said. Well, yeah, it's amazing. It's a new chapter, but it's from it's an old chapter and a new. Well, it's a new chapter of from starting from what you guys had done years ago. But it's amazing. So you must be really excited about that and for the future. So
well, you know, Chris,
yeah.
I am, because when John called me and asked me to if I wanted to come back in the band, you know, I said, "Oh man, you know, it's like I got arthritis in my wrist, and you know, I get migraines, and I supposedly have all these other medical conditions that I don't even claim that I have." But you know, and then it came up, well, you know, you just want to play on the records, which was my suggestion. Why don't I just play on the records and stuff? And then when I told him that I didn't know if I wanted to come back in the band just because of all that, like I couldn't slap, I couldn't pound, like I didn't know what I could do because I hadn't played out live probably since the last time I sat in with you in Baltimore. And you know, basically, I talked to John, you know, and I said, no, I don't want to play on the records because that's not fair to Dave. You got a bass player. It's like, so if I put myself in his shoes, oh, hey, Mike's going to play the bass on the records and you could play live. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, you know. So I said, no, that's not going to work. And I said to John, like 2.5 hours, 3 hours on stage. And he said, you know, pretty much, have you checked my medical condition over the years? I was like, well, sort of. Yeah, I can't argue with that. So, you know, I guess I'll do it. No, I said I'll give it a try. And what I found out was I was getting shots in my wrist for arthritis because, like, I'm double jointed. Like, I can, you know, and if you get arthritis in your wrist and your wrist moves a certain way, you get these pains that are terrible, like bang, you know. And I prayed about it, and I was like, the only way I can do this is if I don't have this, right? And you know, hi honey.
Hi, Mac.
Okay, stay there, stay there. I prayed about it, and I read this scripture that said, you know, as he is, so are we in this world. And it's like, well, he doesn't have arthritis. You know, he doesn't have diabetes. He doesn't have this, that, and the other thing. You know, so I'm just going to believe that he's going to take care of this. I found this compression glove on Amazon. Okay, I put this glove on, and I left it on 3 or 4 days, and I noticed that I did not get one pain, one of those sharp pains, right? So the first gig, I took it off and I kept this wrapped so that I can't, because they told me they could operate on my wrist, but I would have to change my armature, like my technique. I'd have to play like this. I said, no, I've been playing too long to do that, you know. Well, you know, but see, when you keep getting shots, your cartilage gets worse, right? So you're actually making it worse when you get those shots. The pain's less, So what am I going to do? Get a shot every gig? It's you just can't do that. It's like
Right.
they're supposed to last 6 8 months. So I just put this wrap on where I can't bend my hand too far either way, and I can thumb, I can slap, I can do like little harmonic pops and stuff like that. So it's like I'm not impeded in any way, and that was such a relief to find out. It was like, yeah, I can be rusty on the songs and not play that well and stuff like that. But if I know that I'm going to be okay and able to do this, that's what I'm looking for. And
Yeah.
and it's like it was an answer to prayer for me. So I was like, okay, I'm in. Let's do this. And I just want to keep going.
Yeah, well, us fans are very happy to have you back in the band and making new records. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
Joe, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me today. It's been great. It's always good catching up with you as well.
Yeah.
And where can people reach out to find you or connect with you online and so forth?
Well, I'm pretty much just on Facebook and Instagram, and it's just Joe Macre. And
you still have the website, right?
oh yeah, joemacre.com. I haven't visited there in a while because I did those, as you know, because you played on everything. 2 records during COVID, and they sell them at the shows.
Right, right. That was cool. I saw that. I actually had to take a picture and post it on my feed because I was like, this is so cool, I'm on this record with all, and it's Crack the Sky albums here, it made me feel good. But no, that's cool that they do that. And your band is really good at supporting the individual members. Like Bobby's albums are out, and, I'll buy every one that I can as well because, I'll support you guys as a band and individually and everything else. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, but thank you again. If you guys, hopefully everyone enjoyed this video. If please give it a thumbs up. So drop a comment in the. I'm saying this right? Yeah, drop a comment below. If you have any questions for Joe, please do that. We'll respond to every one of them for you. And we look forward to seeing you again. And Joe, I'll talk to you again soon. And take care, everyone.
Thanks,
Peace out.
Chris.
Thank you.